friends. Welcome back to Nobody Knows, the self-help and career development podcast dedicated to the ones who are still trying to figure it all out in life. If this is your first time listening, I'm Juliana, and I want to thank you so much for listening. I'm a 28-year-old who has consistently felt lost in life, and like I've always just been behind when I was navigating my 20s. I created Nobody Knows to share my experiences and advice in hopes that we can relate to one another. We also have guests on here from time to time to spice things up with a different perspective, knowledge, and expertise of figuring it all out. To the usual crew, I appreciate you tuning in again. If you have been loving this podcast, make sure you're following on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and hit the bell on Spotify to be notified of future episodes. Lastly, I'd love your feedback for Nobody Knows podcast. The best way to show your support is either through a 5-star review on either listening platform, or just writing to me directly on either Instagram at Nobody Knows Podcast and on TikTok at Nobody Knows Podcast, followed by an underscore. Today we're joined by Roxy Couse, a businesswoman and career, homebody, introvert, and lifestyle content creator. Roxy has a Master's of Science in User Experience Design and a wealth of experience in the e-commerce industry, having worked for major corporations. Apart from her professional background, Roxy is also a prominent content creator on TikTok and Instagram. Known for her relatability, vulnerability, and transparency, Roxy's content has really resonated with her audiences. I personally look forward to seeing her content daily. There's no video that I've seen of hers that I skip over, and each one I'm learning something new, or I'm thinking about an experience that I've already gone through in a different light. If you haven't already seen her content, it focuses on work from home life, being introverted, and career advice she would give to her younger self. She also loves documenting Sunday errands, so if that's something that you enjoy, I highly suggest checking her out. I truly find Sunday errands, or just errands in general, or just doing your, I don't want to call them silly little routines, but like just your daily routines, so therapeutic and so interesting. That is definitely like my type of content. Roxy's content, I guess, is like akin to receiving advice from a supportive big sister, guiding her community she's built through career challenges with wisdom and empowerment. And when she's not working on her content or working in general, Roxy enjoys spending time at home with her husband Jason and their 2 beloved dogs, Benny and Quincy. Today, we're talking about the highs and lows of working from home, of balancing and prioritizing both the 9 to 5 and content creation, and how to maintain friendships when you're an introvert. Furthermore, Roxy shares advice on how to take the guilt out of setting boundaries in your career, and she dives into her experience of being a first-generation college student within her family and how she found her way all on her own. This episode is for anyone who is grinding it out right now in their 9 to 5, for those that value their job and really want to continue and excel in their career, and for those that just want to feel more comfortable and confident working. You may feel like that sounds like an impossible feat right now, but I can confirm we have definitely all been there, and so can Roxy. And that's the best part of this episode, is that she is sharing all her knowledge and advice on what worked and didn't work for her in her career. So please keep on listening. Thank you so much, Roxy, for being on Nobody Knows today. I'm really excited to have you dive into career development, career advice, your experience in your work, being a homebody, being an introvert, thriving that way. I just can't wait to dive in. So let's start off with, what are you currently figuring out right now in life? And this can be super, super big, or it can be small, like maybe you're taking up a new hobby or something even more personal. What are you figuring out?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here. And I would say what I'm trying to figure out currently is, I talk a lot in my content about working from home for the last 4 or so years. I've always been in roles where I could be hybrid, but I never was fully 100% working from home. So I think I'm still just trying to figure out the balance. And so with working from home, we could move somewhere else. We have more flexibility, and
Mhm.
just trying to figure out the balance between work, home life, where we would like to be. It's just kind of, we're just kind of just trying to figure things out in this era of life that we're in.
Totally. And like, now that you're fully working from home, do you think you would ever go back to like a totally in office job?
Unpopular opinion, but I would. I think I've always been focused on career growth, career progression. Those things have always been important to me. And while, in this space that I'm in currently, I am focusing on building a personal brand as well, but I still have dreams of, being a chief marketing officer, chief digital officer. Those are still aspirations of mine, and where I do the work is not as important to me. So I know there's a lot of, people, even when I post like about work from home life or work from home fatigue, and people are like, couldn't be me. I'm never going back. I would go back. And that's kind of, I think people will find that hard to believe because I'm a homebody. I like being home, but I also loved being in the office.
Mhm.
I love building a community. And people have even said like work should not be where you build a community. You need to have a life outside of work. But I've moved around a lot for work. I currently live in Indiana, and I'm from Texas originally. I went to school in Arkansas. I've lived in Ohio and Michigan, and I've moved around for work. So one of the best places to create community is through people that you meet at work. So
Yeah.
yeah, I would go back if I, if I needed to.
Mhm. So every episode, I share either a listener submission or just a random Reddit post that is in relation to figuring life out. And today,
Okay.
I've pulled a Reddit post for you to give your advice, give what you would do it if you were put into this situation, and
Okay.
it's in relation to you because this person is figuring out that they are slowly becoming an introvert. They are outgrowing their old friends, and they realize that they might just be not in tune with them anymore, and they're sort of having all these realizations as well as just wanting to finding themselves on their own a lot more. So I'll read it to you, and then I would love to get your
Okay.
insight on how you would tackle it or what advice you would have.
Got it. Okay. Sounds good.
I am becoming more introverted the older I get. I'm 23 years old. I'm married. I have two kids, also 23, married and two kids. That is a lot to do when you're 23. I think of myself when I was 23. I was a hot mess.
I was a child.
Literally, literally. And then this person also wrote, and I have a car. Looking at my life from the outside, it's what some consider ideal. And then in parentheses, maybe not for a 23-year-old, but you get the gist. Yes, that's fair. In high school, I was
Okay.
semi popular, did well in athletics, and did well with girls. I always spent time hanging out with a friend. I was almost never alone. Now, in my adult life, that has completely changed. I'm stuck in some weird limbo where everyone my age is living how a 23-year-old would typically live. And this person most definitely is not. Most are single or in a newer relationship. Most of them go bar hopping often, spend time with the boys, have poker nights, etc. I have tried reaching out to my old friends and I find myself just zoning out. I find their conversations unbearable. I really just have an awful time every time. It's not like they've changed, I'm the one who's changed. On the flip side, my wife is 30. She works in the medical field and often has dinners and social outings. These outings consist of people I would consider similar to me based on social, marital, and paternal status. But after
Mhm.
several of these dinner parties, I'm realizing that the whole thing just ends up being a pissing contest. These people joke and laugh, but it's also so fake. They have no real interests. They talk about their things, and that's it. I'm not sure if it's because it's a formal setting, and that's why maybe. But my wife insists that I'm looking into it too hard and I just need to relax. I don't find anyone interesting anymore. I do live in a smaller town, so there aren't many options for friends. Currently, I'm working on a plan to relocate my family to Portland for employment reasons, and I want to think this will create opportunities to make friends. I'm just afraid that my social skills are deteriorating. I feel like I'm stuck in this social limbo where I don't really fit in with anyone. And being someone who has never had problems with being social, this is really messing with my head. So, how do I fit in? Are there other people who would feel this way? Is this just what adult life is? Or do I need to just fake it till I make it?
Okay. Yeah. So it's funny you said there's a Reddit post, and I'm like, is there a Reddit post about me? I
No.
always tell I don't
Oh my
have Reddit,
gosh,
but I tell my
no. But
husband.
there are like Reddit threads about content creators. They're like called
I know. I
Reddit
know.
snarks or whatever. And I would never do that to you, Roxy. I hope there isn't
My
too.
husband, he's the Reddit person, and he's always like looking. I'm like, let me know if there's ever
Let me
something
find the
about me.
person who's talking about my wife.
So I think I think comparison is the thief of joy, and we often compare ourselves to other people. Just because you're 23 and other people are 23 does not mean that
So
you need
true.
to have common interests or common things that you're working on. I think about that a lot. Like, I'm 35 years old and I'm married and we don't have kids. So a lot of people that are our age have kids. They have multiple kids, and there have definitely been friends that I've grown apart from because we're not in that same
Right.
that same space, like the same part of our lives. Even content creation, that's really cringy for like, I mean, I'm a content creator, but like people associate like TikTok with like Gen
Yes.
Z. But I'm a millennial. I'm on TikTok, and I do get comments like, "Oh, no, I would never do TikTok. I would never
Yeah.
do that. That's for like kids or whatever." But I just think comparison is the thief of joy. And we really have to hone in on like how we want to show up, like who we are. And you will find people that accept you for who you are. And it is okay to outgrow old friends. Like when I ventured into corporate America, I outgrew old friends. I don't really like have close ties with people I went to high school with. I only still connected with a couple of people I went to college with, and that's okay because you grow up, you evolve. We are not meant to stay the same. And if you feel that you need to lower your expectations or who you are or how you want to show up just so that you can fit in, then I think you're doing it wrong. So,
Yeah.
and it can be lonely too. Being an introvert can be lonely because you're in your thoughts. Like, maybe you don't want to go out, maybe you want to be a homebody, but like you still want to be invited to do things.
So true.
It's a like I always say, like two feelings can exist at once, or like both feelings can exist. You can be lonely and you can still want to be invited. You can want to be home, but still want to be invited to do things.
Yes.
I just think you just have to really like give yourself grace and just, if you're showing up the way that you want, that's at the end of the day, like you have to make yourself happy. And yeah.
I love that. And could you talk a little bit more about outgrowing people, or not even outgrowing, but like, well, I guess it is outgrowing, but like you go on separate paths because like you said, you are 35 and you don't have kids, but you're married. But some friends that you used to have were married and then they had kids. And I felt that
Yeah.
with my sisters even. Like they're obviously a little bit older than me, but even once they got married and had kids, I just felt a complete it was different. And
Yeah.
they always talked about their kids, and I would never ever like shame them for talking about their kids because that's their life, but I couldn't relate on any level, so I just felt like
Yeah.
there was this distance between us that wasn't there before, and like I
Yeah.
kind of had to grieve that with my own sisters of not being as close to them anymore, and like things are now different.
I think those feelings are a reflection of like how we feel and not how other people feel.
Mhm.
I have friends that have kids that are very intentional. Like, hey, we want to come stay with you guys for a weekend. Like we host friends in the summertime. Actually, we like rotate where we go, but they all have kids, multiple kids. We don't have any.
Mhm.
We have our two dogs, but we still have a good time. We still connect as friends despite our differences. So I think a lot of times when we feel like, oh, things are going to be different because they're married now, I'm single, or they have kids, I don't
Yeah.
have kids. It's a reflection of how we're feeling and not a reflection of how they're feeling. Because what I have found is that my friends are very intentional. They will still try to, do things together, make sure that we keep our like, a strong relationship going. And sometimes when things have like been weird or I'm like kind of grieving because I'm like, oh, my friend, I don't have this friend that I used to have anymore. It's more of like how I'm internalizing
Yeah.
it and now how they actually feel about it. So,
So true. That's a really good point. Can you share with our listeners a bit about yourself and your journey as a career, homebody, introvert, and lifestyle content creator?
yeah, absolutely. So content creation, I've created content for a number of years, and it's gone in like I was doing the keto journey one time. I'm like, I'm gonna document this on Instagram.
Yeah.
I've always loved home decor, and many years ago, my husband and I actually had a home decor business. We did like Etsy, we did like trade shows, because Jason is very good at like making things. We used
Cool.
to teach wood shop at the high school level, and I have the ideas. We're like I like the Chip and Joe, like my ideas, he can help to execute it.
It's like a perfect pair.
And that yeah, yeah. So home decor has always been a part of like what I have done, but I've never really like shown my face on content. I've always just wanted to be like shooting things. Like I want to shoot pretty stuff. But actually started TikTok, and that's what I was doing many years ago. I actually was like 21. It feels like many years ago, but it wasn't going anywhere. Like I would just like shoot pictures in my home. Didn't have a tripod. Was just trying to just like put something out there. But it wasn't until I was like, "I'm a homebody. I think that there's other people that are homebodies, and they would probably relate." And I just remember, like, it was, like, Christmas break. I think it was, like, 2022. It might have been 2021. I don't know. I can't remember. But I just posted this video, like, "Is anyone else a homebody? But you like being invited to things even though there's, like, 100% chance you're not gonna go?" And, like, 10,000 followers. Like, it literally happened so fast. And then, of course, I posted it like things I don't regret buying because I'm a homebody. Like I'm a marketer. Like my
Yeah.
undergraduate degrees in marketing. I work with brands all the time. I've done content strategy for other people, never for myself. So I was like, oh, I'm just gonna tap into this. And it just happened really fast. And so created a community through being a homebody. There's a lot of people out there that are homebodies. It's like
I love it.
impressive. And one of the things that I some people say you can't really be authentic through creating content, but I grew up poor. We didn't have a house. We never owned a house. We always lived in apartments, and we never lived in the same one for like more than like a year or so. At one point we were homeless. And so my content is very like authentic in that yes, I'm a homebody. This is my house. Like I've worked so hard to be able to own a home, and this is not the first home we've owned, but like that's something like to be a homeowner, to come from the background that I came from. And so my content might be a little different. Like I'm not like pushing I do push capitalism sometimes, like, but because people want to buy shit,
Well, they're
like,
like,
but
"What is that? Let me have the
yeah.
link."
Yeah, they're like, "Send me a link." It's the link in your bio. To me, I found that the most cringy part of creating content is people wanting to buy the things that I'm like what I'm wearing, like what I'm talking like that's weird to me. Standing in front of a camera or walking around my house shooting content came more natural to me than people wanting to buy the things that I have. Because then it's like, am I an influencer? Like, this is weird.
The influence, yeah, it's really quite a responsibility to have anyone have a platform, and then also
Yeah,
the element of, like, you are, whether you like it or not, you are influencing people, especially
yeah,
with the community that you have built. But I also wanted to go back a little bit and just say, like, congratulations on how far you have come, and, like, having your home, your second home, or whatever number house this is, really amazing and tremendous. And I am so glad that you post on TikTok or just post your content, because it's like that is the reward of you just being able to enjoy
yeah.
your house and share it with others, and reflect on how far you have come.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I appreciate that so much. I do think that sometimes content creation gets a bad rap or like no, but they're I'm really authentic in my content, and this was a way for me to kind of tell my story to inspire other people because people everybody's like going through something. Like we just don't know what the journey that people are on. But yeah, I just hope if my content inspires just one person, that means the world to me.
Yeah, and I also think, like, the way that you do your content, because when I first found you, it was different. You didn't really use, like, popular sounds. You just had your voiceover and, like, you talking to the viewer, right? And I thought that
Yeah,
that was really different and cool, and obviously everything that you had to say too, I was, like, hooked. I was like, "Oh my gosh, like, I need to hear more," right? Like, I
yeah.
really valued what you had to say. It was really interesting, and I resonated with it. So I understand why you've built like such a community, because of the content that you create is definitely authentic within TikTok, respectively.
Yeah, 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 I appreciate that, and that's a hard balance too because balancing being authentic, but also trying to grow, it's like, because you could use trending audio, you can learn how to, like, edit, like, be really fancy with it, but it's just this balance, and I've always wanted to build a community more so than to go viral or to grow really, really fast.
Yeah, I totally agree, and I'm struggling with that right now is, like, I'm still trying to find, like, my voice, I guess, within the respective channels that I'm on, as well as that's my
Yeah.
main goal too, is, like, creating this community of people that, like, literally have no idea what they're doing, but we're technically adults, so we kind of need to know. And I'm still trying to figure out, like, what's my style, like, play around with
Yeah.
things. So I'm really looking forward to when I do figure that out, and hopefully it works, it sticks. But I'm still in that, it's kind of like right on brand figuring it out because I have no
Yeah,
idea.
I have 100% confidence that you're going to figure it out.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's move into talking about, like, working from home. So, as
Okay.
someone who excels at working from home, what are some of the key strategies you use to stay productive but also maintain a work life balance?
It's funny, someone who excels at working from home. One thing about me is I have ADHD.
I would
So
never guess. I would literally never guess. You seem so well. I mean, a hyper focus is a quality of ADHD, is it not?
yeah, it is. So I there's a lot of different systems that I've put into place. So like when I'm at my desk right now. So like one thing I have is like this time cube. I literally have to like have like time block my time to stay on track. My calendar is color coded. Like I have my meetings, I lead a global team too. So like I have like color blocks for like this is when I'm going to have one-on-one. So like I'm in a different frame of mind, and I just try to keep a schedule, keep a routine, and it's literally the same thing every single day. Like I wake up, I have to take my dog for a walk. I come back, I shower, I get dressed. I do the same thing every single day. Now when I create content is really, it's just like, I don't know, I call it like point 0.3 seconds of your life. Like it's little snippets of point 0.3 seconds of your life. And so that can vary, but I have to keep a routine in order for me to like stay on track. Now, it's really funny with content creation though, because I post like almost every day. That part of my life, like I know I'm going to create something, but I don't do content calendars. I know some things that I want to post about, and people are like, well, how do you like come up with ideas?
Mhm.
That's like I could be like I could go to bed and like I wake up and I'm like, "Oh my god, that I have an idea." And I just like jot it down. My notes app has like thousands of notes on my phone of ideas. And that's just that part of my life is chaotic, but it makes sense to me. It's a system that I've built, but that's really how I thrive. And now excelling from working from home, I found that funny because I've definitely struggle to find balance between home and like work life. So I've created a dedicated space. I try to like leave work in my office, but that doesn't always happen. Like a lot of times I feel like or a lot of times I'm on my laptop at nighttime, but people don't
Yeah.
like see those things.
Mhm.
But I that in the office I was the same way. Like I would try to get to work. I'd be the first one there. Sometimes I'd be the last one like to leave, not because I'm trying to like just keep a seat warm or anything that way, but like it does take me a lot of extra effort to focus and also to just like create those routines, and I just do what like works for me.
I totally feel that with, taking the time to focus, because I will be working, I work from home fully, and there will be days where I have, like, a 2-hour chunk, and I'm like, "Oh my god, I'm gonna get so much done," and, like, realistically, I only get one of the things done. Like, I get it done completely, but, like, it takes so
Yeah.
long for me to focus into it, and especially if I've just come from another meeting, I have difficulty going right into work, as well as I'm really bad at
Yeah.
setting out specific breaks. And it's weird too because I'm like, oh, it's I need to set out specific breaks in my day for me because then I will ultimately be more productive. But I also feel really guilty because I'm like, oh my god, it's taking away my taking away from my productive time.
Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of I mean, I love that Google has that calendar feature now where it's like, this is how many hours you're in meetings. Weeks that I'm in meetings for like 30 hours, I don't get much work done because it's very hard to take your mind from like meeting to like task work.
Yes.
I do block my calendar for focus time. so that I could actually like get work done. I think that's so important because it's very hard to shift from like Zoom calls to now let me go back to what I'm doing. And I think that in the COVID era has like made multiple like I don't think people listen as much as they used to because to get work done, you're on calls doing the work while you're trying to like, also try to
So
listen and
true.
be there. Like, yeah. So I do block that time for focus time because I have found where I'm not retaining, like if I'm on a call and I'm actually trying to do work, it's very difficult to listen and be in that moment. Yeah. So
And I feel like because we're all well, majority of us are virtual, we have this idea that, oh, if we're on a virtual call and we're not listening, we don't need to listen because it'll be somewhere in the Slack channel, it'll be somewhere in our emails. Like we don't actually need to listen because we'll get the notes later or the meeting notes later.
yeah.
And we kind of like lean on that as to listen with one ear and do something else.
Yeah, and I'm very protective of my calendar too. If I don't need to be on a call and I know that if I join this call, I'm just going to be working on something else, I don't join the call. I do a very good job of cleaning my calendar. Like I'll look at all my meetings, I'll see if there's an agenda. If there's not an agenda at the beginning of the week, I will email someone like, "Hey, what is this call about?" Because I like to just own my time, and I think that's so important because I think early in my career, I literally like maybe it's FOMO, maybe it's like, "Oh, I need to be in the know on everything," but there I would never turn down a meeting. I would just be there, even if it had nothing to do with me or my role.
Oh my,
So,
everything you've just said was like my first 3 years as, like, getting into my career. I was, like, so eager to do anything and, like, obviously didn't wanna stir the pot or, like, didn't wanna say no to things and, like, be, like, looked as, like, bad or, like,
yeah, yeah,
compliant or right, and I have just started getting into the habit of, like, owning my calendar, and first off, it gets me jazzed because 'cause I'm like, "'Kay, I have all of this open time for myself or, like, what I actually need to do. I'm far more
yeah,
productive. I've been since I started doing it this year, the amount of productivity that I feel, satisfaction from the work that I'm outputting is like tenfold. And
yeah,
I I just feel clearer. Like I don't and I'm
yeah,
also not in every single meeting now either, where I was before. And it was really hard for me to just say, do I need to be in this meeting? Or
yeah,
asking for an agenda, like you said. Like I struggle to do that still, but I'm getting better at it.
right, right. Yeah, I think that's so important, and learning to say no is it's so important in your career. Like the strategic way to say no, and sometimes a no, like it could be a yes, but so
What are your top 3 work from home products or tools? I think you actually just posted a TikTok about this yesterday, so I was already creeping that, but everyone would love to know.
top 3, I'm probably gonna have to say, like, something to make, like, a hot drink, like, I have, like, a tea, like, what is it? London Fog right now, but, like, my kettle, my Nespresso, my Keurig, like, I have all the things. I think that's so important. That's number 1, and you need all of that. Like, when I worked in an office, we had, like, a coffee bar, and we had, like, tea bags and stuff, and I was the person that would, like, be demonstrating how to make, like, a drink that I had. Like,
The
that
workplace
was
barista.
me. Yeah.
That's hilarious. That's so fun,
So
though.
and I just remember doing that all the time, like, that was what I did.
Roxy will make
Um,
you a
I
latte.
I know, I'm like, "Come, you wanna go get a coffee? Let me just make you this one I made this morning." I can make the most of any type of, like, ingredients that the company provided us. I would say 2 is probably my, like, time tracking cube because it does help me to focus and I am able to block my time to, like, get work done. 3? What would I say is 3? I don't know, maybe my walking pad or, like, maybe my standing desk. I love both of those equally. Maybe it's my standing desk because this is, like was one of my first, like, no regret purchases as a corporate girly that works from home. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot. Like, I have a ergonomic office chair. Yeah,
That is super underrated, chairs.
Totally. I had this, and I wish I could find a picture, but when I first started working from home, I had found this like old, like one of these old school chairs in my in-laws' basement. It was like this orange chair. And I'm like, yes, it like rolled, like, I don't know, like it's just a very like antique.
Yeah.
And I was like, yes, this is my office chair. And probably like after the first like couple weeks of working from home, I had excruciating back
Oh,
pain.
no.
Like it was just awful. It was the chair. It was definitely the
The
chair.
antique chair was making you antique.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, dear. Well, so then you got the chair that you have now? Or did you get something
Yeah,
else?
and I love this chair. Yep.
I love it. Yeah, I just got a proper chair too, and it's, like, life-changing. I still haven't even looked up all of the different functions you can do, like, you can put the back rest
Oh,
back
nice.
further and stuff, and, like, it has
Yeah.
footrest too and stuff that I've started to use as
Yeah.
well, and I, like, love it. Like, it's I've noticed such a difference.
Yeah, it's definitely a game changer.
As a first generation college student, you mentioned in a TikTok that you recognized you're at a disadvantage when it comes to your career since you didn't have your parents or other family members to show you the way and give you advice on, like what's best to do or just how to navigate corporate or work situations. Furthermore, you have been learning and figuring things out as you go. Can you elaborate more on these realizations and share any advice to listeners who are also navigating a similar experience?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing in being like a first generation college student is growing up, I only knew about like traditional roles, like traditional jobs, like a teacher, a lawyer, an astronaut, like of all things.
Yeah.
Like those are things like as a kid, like when you have career day and stuff, those are the jobs that they're talking about. I didn't even know anything about corporate America or these jobs, and it really wasn't until even in college. Like it's really kind of wow how like I've excelled in my career, but I wasn't even thinking about college. Like even my senior year, a college softball coach was like, "We would love for you to come for a visit." And that was the first time that I was even thinking about it because I didn't have like my parents didn't go to like actually my dad went to college, but he wasn't in my life. My mom didn't go to college. No one in my immediate family went to college, so I just it wasn't even top of mind, and I wasn't even talked to it wasn't even talked about to me to like from my like counselors or anything. So again, like I think if my parents if I wasn't a first gen and and my parents were involved in that aspect of my life, or maybe we had like a car and we could even go to like these career nights or whatever, I would have had like a step up, but I didn't. And so a college coach was like, "We want you to come for a visit." That was the first time I thought about college. I actually got a softball scholarship, so that was how I even went to college.
Wow.
It just wasn't, I don't know why, and maybe I feel like I probably have struggled with, like, ADHD much longer than from when I was formally diagnosed. So, I, like, went to college, and even in college, I was like, I thought I would be a history teacher because, again, it's a traditional job. I was a history major, and when I decided I was gonna transfer to the University of Arkansas, and that was because, like, the guy I was dating at the time was going to Arkansas, and I'm like, "I'm gonna go to Arkansas too." It was then like, when I was, like, doing the transfer credits, they were like I talked to a counselor, I was like, "What can I even do with a history degree?" And
Right.
she was like, "You can be a teacher, you can be a park ranger."
What?
Just really, yeah.
So random.
And but she goes, "But the University of Arkansas has a really great business school because that's like Sam Walton School of Business, that's Walmart, like where Walmart is." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Let me change my major to business." And so I ended up changing my major to business, ended up majoring in marketing. But then even through college, I worked at a retail store. So, and my junior year, I did an internship with that retail store where it's like you did like a rotational program. They flew us to Chicago. And then my junior year, they offered me a job after graduation. It was like working in a retail
Oh my
store,
gosh.
basically doing the same thing that I had done.
Yeah.
And so I was still going on the same path. It was like very safe. And then it someone found my resume out on Monster, this like e-commerce retail company. They're like, "We want you to come in for an interview." And it was funny. It was like perfect timing because it was about that time that that retail store was like, "We want to transfer you to Texarkana." That's my hometown.
Um,
"We want you to transfer to Texarkana." So I'm like, this is awesome. Like, I could go
Yeah.
back home. I made $40,000 a year at that time. I could go back home, making my $40,000, live with my mama.
Yeah, and
Um,
save.
yeah. Or but I'm gonna go in for this interview just to see what this is about, and,
Smart, yeah.
by chance, I don't even remember putting a resume out on Monster. I got that job, and that job changed my life because I've been in e-commerce for well over a decade now
Wow.
at this point, and that's where it started, and my advice for, like, first generation college students, especially, like, and I've talked about this, and it's funny because, like, a lot of first gens are like, "Yeah, I had no idea. No one has talked about this to me." You don't know what roles exist outside of traditional roles, so you have to, seeing people like me that has talked about being a first gen who has gone through, I'm in e-commerce, which, like, a lot of people probably don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Like, when I met my husband, he's like, "What is this? Like, is this a real job?" I'm like, "It is, and you can make a really good living doing it."
Yeah.
But I think also, like, when you get in corporate, you also don't know how to navigate these spaces, like, dealing with, like, microaggression, dealing with,
Yeah,
like, trying to, like, advocate for yourself, not, like, coming from, like, a mindset of, like, "Oh, I'm just so grateful they gave me an opportunity," to, like, "I deserve to be here. I've worked hard to be here." It's just, like, this set shift that, as a first generation college student, I had to figure out, and yeah. So, definitely was at a disadvantage. I arrived, thankfully, through trial and error. So if
yeah.
I can save anyone, some of the steps that I took, I wanna do that.
When you were saying that you could have taken, like, this quote unquote "safe job" and gone back to your hometown and live with your mom, or take a risk and, like, just even go to this job interview for this position you had no idea even existed. I would also say,
Yeah,
like, being in your position, sometimes you don't have the opportunity or, like, even the privilege to take the risk.
yeah.
So, what's your advice when it comes to, like, if people of similar experience are put in positions where they don't know what to do, but they have 2 different opportunities, how could they sort of scope it out a little bit more to make more of, like, an educated guess?
I think we have to, not go for what's going to be comfortable now, but think about your future self and setting yourself up for the future. Like, if I had to taken that, job in my hometown, like, that's what, like, Roxy, right, in that moment wanted.
Yeah,
But I wasn't thinking about the Roxy in 10 years and what I want out of my life. So you have to really, like, make decisions for your future self and not, like, the instant gratification or the things that you want right now.
so true. You highlighted that you've switched jobs roughly every 2 to 3 years without guilt. It's a very important note to touch on. What was your process in achieving this, and how do you let go of the guilt? Or if you can't let go of it, how do you manage it?
Yeah, it's funny when I was like, I've switched jobs every 2 years without guilt. It's kinda, like, cringy
I
to
think it's,
say.
like, really impressive, but I wanna know how, because, like, I don't know how to do
Yeah,
that.
I did read a stat. It's like, if someone stays at a role for, like, I don't even wanna misquote it, but it was, like, more than, like, 2 or 3 years over the course of your lifetime, you make 50% less than someone who does switch. I don't encourage job hopping, but what I do encourage is for you to really, like, own your career and own your career journey and know where you want to go and know when you're stuck. So, there have been times where I've had to switch jobs because I knew it was the right decision. So, like, I worked for a company that, like, the financials, I didn't think the financials were good, and I was very young in my career. I was having a good time. This was the kind of company that, like, they always had, like, a stocked refrigerator, breakfast was there. We had, like, Taco Tuesdays. Like, in your 20s, that is a
That's,
good
like,
time,
amazing.
you
That's
know?
great.
Yeah, like, I remember, like, the World Cup is on and, like, everybody has their laptop in front of the TV, like, that's great, but that's also that, like, these are the things that, like, is this gonna set my career up, like, for the future? Like, so what I do is I'm always assessing, am I in the right place? Am I getting the experiences that I want? Is there growth here? So I talk about, like, a career compass, and I've shared this with a lot of different people, but it's like this constant, like, I know the job I want in 1 year, I know the job I want in 5 years. And if I'm not, like, right now, if I'm not working towards those things that I want, then I might make the decision that, this I need to, like, leave. I've also had to deal with, like, difficult like, I've been in a role where I was working my butt off, and I was just at that, like, there's, like, this stigma, like, one of my boss early on, he's like, "If we can get you to stay for 2 years, we can get you to stay for 5." But I've been in a role where I was like, "What else do I have to prove?" I'm just working really hard, not really getting anywhere, seeing people around me getting promoted, and I was told, "There's nothing else you need to prove. We're just not ready to promote you." That's a hard realization to know that it's not going to happen for you, and
Yeah,
that's something you can't put on a resume, but you just have to figure out, like, if it's not the right fit, after some time, if you're not getting to where you'd like to be, because a career is personal, it's a
totally.
business. You should run it like a business, and that's how I've always treated my career. I'm just like, I need these experiences. I need to go over here to get these experiences. But I'll be honest, the best companies that I've worked for, and actually my company is the company I work for right now is very invested in my career growth, my career progression. And I'm not looked at it as like, oh, did you do XYZ this year? Like, there is this long-term plan for me, like this 5-year plan of getting me to the levels that I want to be. And that's what I've always desired in my career, someone to take a vested interest in my growth and my progression. Because it's not just about getting promoted. It's about getting exposure and experiences to set you up for, any future roles that you want to take.
Totally. I love that quote that you just said, run your career like a business. I just had like a aha moment. I was like, that makes so much sense. And then I think
Yeah.
when you do that, you naturally just take the guilt. The guilt kind of goes away or comes second nature because like you're focused on the business, right? Like, does that sound
Yeah,
silly when I
you're
explain it that
focused on the
way?
business.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's even like people feel really weird about talking about money, but, like, it's a transaction, like,
Hmm.
you're delivering a service and you're getting paid for it, so
Totally.
and
Yeah.
and if at some point you say, "I want to make more money because I think my service is more valuable," like,
Yeah.
you have to do what you have to do to make
Hmm.
that happen.
I love that. Personally, last year, I felt like I was in constant fight or flight mode at work, and I've also talked about it
Yeah.
on this podcast that I took a leave of absence last year from work. So, have you ever felt this way? And I think you've touched on this a little bit in your TikToks. And if you have, how do you get out of this space or also cope with this feeling of fight or flight? Like fight or flight can also be like extremely detrimental to like just your overall health.
Yeah.
So how have you dealt with it?
Yeah, I've definitely had those, times in my career where I have felt like I was in that fight or flight mode, and taking a step back is important. Like, take your time off. I think that's so critical. You need to be able to just, like, one, your job is not all of who you are. And so that, I think it's so important to remember that and take the time off, make sure you're decompressing, taking care of yourself and doing what you need to thrive, because, at the end of the day, if we're not healthy, we cannot, like, the work doesn't matter. Like, you have to take care of yourself. And I try to always remember that about the job and everything
Right.
is, taking care of myself. And I have an autoimmune disease, and so it's even more critical for me to, like, I always talk about in my TikToks, take care of yourself, do what you need to thrive, because that is important. Because if I'm on a hospital bed and I'm not able to even
Exactly.
move, how am I, like, why would the work even matter at the and I think I learned early on, like, I do, like, get stressed, but it also makes me laugh when I think about it. It's like, am I really stressed that I have, like, 50 emails when there are, like, bigger problems to solve, or,
Very
like,
true.
I have wanted forever to be in this position that I'm in. Like, am I really stressed about this? So I
Yeah.
do try to reframe my mindset all the time. Like, I'm constantly checking in with myself, and I think that's so important.
Yeah. I also work in marketing, and a running joke at our agency is whenever we are stressed, it's like we are not saving lives. Like, yeah, of course, people are
Yeah.
paying us money. That's
Have
important.
always said that too. Yep,
But
yep.
like I don't work in healthcare. I'm not like on the front lines, like I'm not saving people.
I am doing marketing, contributing to
Yeah.
capitalism, right? Like
Yeah, yeah, exactly. That's like e-commerce is like I'm at the end of the day, I am trying to get people to buy more stuff online. Like that's not like yeah, I'm definitely not like saving lives at all. And I do try to keep that frame of mind. And I also like I think it's so important like and I talk about like another reason why it's like run your career like a business. When I was in college, like I worked at this retail store and my best friend, like the I hadn't met really anyone outside of like school, but I worked at this store and I met this guy, amazing person, best person I've ever met in my life. He had worked there long before I got there, but on my 21st birthday, he called me in the morning, never called me ever in my life. Called early, early morning and said, "Hey, I'm running late for work, but I wanted to wish you a happy birthday."
oh,
That's amazing.
that's so nice.
Like, maybe, like, 15 minutes later, I get a call, and I didn't answer, and it was really weird because yeah, it was I didn't answer it. It turns out that that was a dispatcher calling me because I was the last person he talked to, and he died. He had a car accident. I know.
No.
But what was so crazy about this person who dedicated everything to this job was the day of his funeral, we all went, like everybody that we worked with. So they didn't have people to work. Like, and so they were calling everyone. And I think that that was to me that just changed my whole perspective about everything
Totally.
because people matter more and that just put that into my perspective that put everything into perspective about like what matters most to me and I try to like keep that frame of mind as I'm going through my career.
Oh my god.
And it's yeah, people.
That story, I don't wanna cry cry because, like, ew, but, like, that was, like, such a moving story that makes me so
Yeah.
emotional.
Yeah. I think about him like I mean in the moment like it happened I like could not, like, not think about it, but as time has gone on, things have gotten easier, and what's really crazy about that whole thing was when I started my first job in e-commerce, a girl started, and sh we became best friends, I was, like, the maid of honor in her wedding. They were from the same hometown. They I don't
Oh
her brother or his brother was in her grade, and they were friends, and so it's also
my
just,
god,
like,
what a small world.
so
Yeah.
crazy how things different city, different everything, and just those connections, but it's just kind of yeah.
Wow. So, tying into the fact that work is not everything, let's talk about you more and, like, your personal life. You share a lot about your
Yeah.
dogs on TikTok, so Benny and Quincy, right?
Yeah.
They're so cute. I love them. How long have you had them? Tell us about their breeds, their quirks, like the joys of being able to work from home and then also have them there with you all day long.
Yeah, I used to be afraid of dogs, and I still am actually. It's really weird because like, our whole neighborhood has dogs, but if one, like, got off leash and, like, came towards
Yeah,
me,
it is a bit scary.
terrified.
Yeah.
My husband's like, "This is really weird, like, that you have dogs and you're afraid of dogs." But we got Quincy. Quincy's our first dog. We got him in 2020. My husband's like, "We need a dog." Like, it's during the pandemic, everybody was adopting a dog. And so we adopted Quincy, but it was really I didn't think anything of it, but my husband goes into the office. We adopt Quincy and like we over a weekend and then that Monday comes and Jason's like I'm got to go to work. And I'm like, "Well, what are we going to do?" Like me and Quincy are like looking at each other like what like but we did me and him, we figured it out.
Mhm.
I'm his best friend, he's my best friend, and that is one of the reasons that's one of my joys of working from home is the fact that I get to stay home with my dogs. And like I had posted a long time ago this video, like because last year I traveled a lot for work, and Quincy was just home by himself. He looked so sad, and the whole day he's going from like the window
Oh,
back to the couch, the window to the couch.
where's mom?
And it's yeah, so being home with my dogs is such a joy. We adopted Benny. It's almost been a year. We adopted him last April because Jason wanted a dog
Oh, he wanted
because
his own.
Quincy
He was
is
jealous now
clearly
that
my
you and
dog.
Quincy were like besties. That's hilarious.
But that's not how it worked out. So now I have 2 dogs, because Quincy or Benny is also like
Yes,
my
loves
dog.
you. Not a surprise. Yeah.
Yeah, and they were both adopted, they were both rescues. Benny is really interesting because he was in a house with 20 dogs, and they, like, pulled all the dogs out, took them to a shelter, And when he was in that house, he started playing with a metal bottle cap, like, which is really bizarre. He would like flip it out of his mouth and catch it. Like that was his like. And when they found him, they took the bottle cap away and they gave him a ball. And now he's obsessed. Like he's obsessed with his balls. He can like play fetch and he can catch it. Like very impressive dog. And the first night we got him, because he's so like hyperactive
Mhm.
on his like balls and stuff, we were like, we got to take this dog back because Quincy is lazy. Quincy like sleeps 23 hours a day. Benny does not. Benny wants to play.
All the time.
And we were exhausted. But he's been great. His birthday, we just celebrated his birthday. We
Oh.
got him an automatic like ball thrower. Um
That's
so
perfect. Oh
yeah,
my
yeah,
gosh,
I
I
know.
love it.
It's great. And we wanted, and because I travel, we wanted Quincy to have a dog. And so
Totally.
now Quincy has Benny and it's
Oh,
great.
that's so cute. I love it. We also rescued our dog too. He's from up from Nunavut, and we don't really know what he is. He came from a dachshund rescue organization,
Oh, okay.
and
We
but
love dachshunds.
yeah, because I think Benny part dachshund.
Well, for his birthday, we also did the DNA test.
Okay.
So we will find out
Oh my
in like
gosh,
a couple
that's
weeks
so
what
exciting.
he is.
So we did that too. And I have to tell you this because this is actually really funny. We did the DNA test and we sent it off, and then we planned a breed reveal party for him in the summer last
Yeah.
year. And we got like our closest friends here, and then we got the results, but we didn't check them. And like the whole party was so that we could all look at the results together.
Okay.
And we had like bets, and like everyone had to guess what they thought Larry's our dog Larry was, and everyone
Cute
brought
name.
their dogs, and it was like a really good afternoon. So we opened the video and it says he's poodle. I'll send you a photo of him afterwards. He is like small. He looks like a miniature German shepherd but with a dachshund
Yeah.
body. I'm
Oh
like,
my god.
we're all like, poodle? Like, what the heck? How does that happen? So we don't know if it was like actually accurate. I mean, who knows? Some people have said that there's actually a lot of poodle breeds or that it exists in Nunavut. So that could be accurate. But we were just all so like, what? None of us guessed poodle.
So is that was it like that was the strongest percent and there was
Yes. Yeah,
others?
so there was
Oh, okay.
others. So there was Lhasa Apso. So like the ones that kind of look like a moth, they got really really long hair, but they have really long bodies. So that could
Yeah.
also be
Okay.
fair. He had like part like terrier, German shepherd, Canadian Inuit dog, so many different ones. And then majority besides poodle was just a super mutt. So there's so many different
Oh,
breeds.
Quincy. They say Quincy has super mutt in
Yeah.
him too.
It's essentially like all the different breeds, and they can't like pinpoint it because it's just makes made up of so many. So yeah, so
Yeah.
he's really just a big mutt, but he's really small and short, but he looks like a big dog.
So Jason logged back into the results, the DNA test. It was a couple weeks ago, and it said that like Quincy was like a 70% match with another dog.
Cool.
And so we got so excited. We emailed the person. They never responded, but we're like, "Oh my god, our dogs are like brothers, sisters, cousins, something."
That would be so cool to like send photos back and forth to like see their quirks or if they're
Yeah,
like similar.
exactly, exactly.
So you're also on Book Talk and you have given reviews of specific books that you have read. What are you currently reading? If you are reading anything right now.
Right now, I'm not reading anything, but I just joined book. I read all the time. I've always been reading, but I've never done like book
Right.
reviews, and so I'm just starting to like do more of them. But not reading anything right now. I need to figure out what my next book is. I read like 5 books in
You
January,
read a
and I
lot.
think
I
it's because
saw.
I went so hard in January that I'm like February is just kind of like
Yeah. Chill time. Well, I noticed that
yeah,
you had posted what was the one series? It's like has like
the
mansion.
Dreamland Billionaire
Yes,
series.
and I really want to read
Yeah.
those. Every time I go to
It
the
was really good.
bookstore, I look at those. I'm like, I gotta read them. But I saw that
Yeah.
you had reviewed them, so it's on my list.
Yeah. I loved them. Yeah, I mean, it was typical happy ending, but they're really good. I would definitely recommend them.
So if you hear someone's reading a specific book and it sort of causes a little bit of jealousy because you wish you could read that book again for the first time, what book would that be?
A book that I wish I could read for the first time again. I don't know. I think it might not be a book that's like typical like that I like spicy talk, but I really loved Stacey Abrams' Leading from the Outside.
Okay.
And I know that that one like Stacey is a politician basically, but I loved it from the perspective of like you can lead from your seat. You can lead from wherever you are. And I think I found a lot of like correlation between my job in corporate and
Totally.
her role. And so I loved it. I would read that again. I've like bookmarked everything, highlighted so many things,
Yeah.
but yeah, I thought
I
it was
love that
beautiful.
it's a nonfiction because anytime I ask people that question, they're always like picking a fiction novel.
Yeah, yeah.
And I really love nonfiction. I find sometimes, well, it depends on the type of book. If it's more like self help or just like you're kind of like learning something from it, I find it hard to like read it front to back. If it's more of like a
Yeah,
memoir or like a personal experience type novel from like a real life person, I feel like that's more interesting because there are some story elements included in there. So it's easier to read it front to
right.
back. That's really interesting.
Yeah, and I had made a last year I was like I'm not reading any more self-help books. I was like I everything I need to know, I know at this
Yeah,
point
it's very
because
true.
self-help you always feels like you're like you can't decompress cuz you're still trying to learn and try so that's why I started reading Colleen Hoover. Like I have a lot of her books, Tessa Bailey. Like I have so many
Mhm.
books like that because I did not want to read self-help books anymore.
So when I was on my leave of absence last year, I was reading a lot more, and I kept telling my therapist, "Yeah, like I'm reading all these novels and stuff, but like I don't know, like they're not really exciting. I'm just sort of reading because I have additional time like to myself." She's like, "Well, why don't we put the self-help books down? And why don't you pick up a book that
Yeah.
you actually want to read that like is interesting?" So I was like
Yeah.
trying to like improve myself while I was supposed to take a rest and like take a break.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Lastly, you have also recently started running, which I love. I got into running last year too. My partner does like marathons and all of this. Like
Yeah.
he's addicted, but I tried to do a 5K and a 10K last year. And so I love your
Mm.
journey of you starting from the very beginning because I really resonate with that. What do you love about running?
Yeah, and it's funny. I mean, again, I the internet is not real life, and I like although I was like starting a beginner runner, I have been a runner before in my life. I did the Couch to 5K many years ago. It was probably like I don't know, 2012, 2013. I did the Couch to 5K. I used to run all the time inside treadmill. I loved it. But then, like, once you stop, running is not one of those things you just pick back up.
No,
Once you stop, you have to like relearn. And so I knew the Couch to 5K was effective and I wanted to do that again. So that's why I started running again and started like talking about it. And I had actually done many, many years ago, I did a 10K at in my husband's hometown. They have like Oktoberfest. And on like the last day, there's a 10K. I did so poorly, and I was running with these other 2 girls who went off and left me, but I did so poorly that, like, my husband's like, "Where is she? Like, she has not finished yet." He he starts walking the trail, the running trail backwards to try to, like,
find you.
find me.
Yeah,
He eventually did. And it was awesome because I well, not awesome because I'm, like, younger, and I started running beside a guy who had had, like, this heart surgery, and he's like, I'm just thankful to be out here to be running." And I don't know how I like feel about that. It's like me and him were keeping pace with each other and he's like much older than me, but still it was a different perspective too.
totally.
Like when you run, like
Yeah.
it doesn't matter if you're like good at it, like
Yeah.
you're running. Like that's
Yes.
a blessing. So, yeah.
Exactly. That's my partner has always said that when I first started to run, I didn't really call myself a runner. So like when people ask you what do you do or like what do you like to do for fun, I would never say
Yeah.
running. And he's like, you should say you're a runner because you literally get out there every so often and you run or
And
however many
you
times you
run.
run.
Yeah.
Like he's like, it doesn't matter how fast you go, doesn't matter the distance you go. It also doesn't matter like how good overall you are. Like you are a runner no
Yeah.
matter what.
Right. That's what somebody commented on one of my videos and they're like forward is a pace. Like who cares at the end of the day?
Totally.
You're running.
Going into your full-time job as well as content creation, Were there any hesitations or questions from like coworkers or leadership about you creating content?
I think no, and there are definitely a lot of people that know that I create content. I've always So if you meet me in real life, I am not I'm a content creator, but I don't present myself that way. And
Right.
so when someone sees me in real life and they're like, "Oh," or like work people, specifically work people, and they're like, "I've seen your content." I'm like, that's embarrassing. That's not who I am in this setting,
Right.
and I just don't even wanna talk about it, but, the algorithm's interesting because it shows your content to people that know you,
Yes.
and that's interesting to me. People have, sent me messages, like, at work and like, "Hey, your content showed up on my For You page. That's really cool." So, it hasn't been, like, a huge issue. There's a lot of I have coworkers who also create
Cool. I
content.
love that.
So and I'm like an influence I've always been like an influencer at, like, an e-commerce. I haven't had the platform that I have now in TikTok, but I do webinars. I talk about e-commerce. Like, I'm a top e-commerce voice on LinkedIn. So, while I do this for work, I now am also sharing my story, like, to build my personal brand also.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like people then at work would probably like it's a no-brainer as to why you would create your own personal content then.
Yeah, like there's not a there's people that are not like natural, like I feel like it came more natural for me to just create content because I've been in this space for so long.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, a lot of coworkers started following when I was just posting home decor. It was a little weird when I don't feel like a lot of my coworkers are on TikTok, but I was always hesitant to post on Instagram because that is where a lot of coworkers are. But when I started to bring the content over to Instagram, because I want to grow that platform too, I've like hesitate on like what I post or what I talk about. But at the end of the day, I think, the some people say like, block your coworkers, if it keeps you from wanting to post the content that you want, or like people are like afraid to be seen trying. Like who wants to be seen trying to be an influencer? Like that's kind of weird, but still, I think if this is something that you want to do, then you figure out how to do it. But I like make sure I read my company's like social policy and just make sure that I don't post like during like work hours or anything like that. Like I have like strict guidelines of like how I post or how I do it because I want to be respective of my 9 to 5.
Totally. And tying into what you said about building a personal brand, what is your advice to those that are wanting to discover their own personal brand?
So I think in discovering your personal brand is one thing for me was to think about like who I am outside of work. So I don't talk about e-commerce in my content, but I could talk about e-commerce all day long.
Yeah.
Like it's what I do. But I want to, you should be well-rounded. Like, it's not just about like what you do for work because you're so much more than that. Like what else is there to you? What do you like? Like maybe you do like running. You could talk about running all day. Maybe you are an introvert. Maybe you like going out to eat and posting about like the food that you're eating and all this kind of stuff. Like there's just so much more to you than your day job. And I think you just need to figure out like what are those things that I love, that I enjoy, that I want people to know about me. And I think that's where it starts is, defining just showing up for.
What's your advice to other introverts on maintaining friendships, but also setting your boundaries?
Yeah, I think friendship, especially as you get older, it has to be very intentional. Like I don't like to like I have friends where like I don't do well with texting. So, you text me, I might not text back for a couple months. That's just like, but then it's kind of weird because they're like, we see you online. You're online.
You
They're like,
just
why are
posted
you
this,
not texting
Roxy.
back?
Why are you responding to my text?
Yeah. But so one of my like best friends, and I actually met her through work. And my husband and I moved to Michigan for a job. And like, I just like, we lived downtown. We lived in this like really nice place. Like, there's like bars and stuff around. We did not ever like really want to partake in that. But this girl who's now my like really good friend, and I am going to be in her wedding next year. She was persistent. She's like, "Hey, I'm literally right beside your apartment. You should come out." And so I did. And I have this picture where I kind of look uncomfortable, but like she's just persistent. Like I think if you're friends with an introvert, sometimes you have to be persistent. And I think
True.
introverts are like really cool people. Like
Yeah.
but, I do think you have to understand, like, how they're wired and, they do need that time to just, like, re-energize. It doesn't matter who you are. Like, my husband's an introvert, I'm an introvert. I need time to, like, re-energize, like, even,
Yeah.
like, like, in interacting with, someone that I love and that I'm married to. So, just understanding how people, like, are wired and being respective of them and not taking it personal. Like, if I don't text you back, then it's not because I don't want to. It's literally because, like, I just can't. I actually told my friend this, like, finding a somebody to do my hair. If you don't have a website, I'm not going to book with you. Like, I don't wanna call you. I'm not going to
That's a very
like,
fair
I'm not
point.
gonna text you to try to coordinate a time. Like, I don't wanna do that.
Oh, that's so uncomfy. I agree too. Like I whenever I'm looking for like services or like anything where I like a smaller business, right? The first thing I'm like, do they have like one of those
Sorry,
oh,
my dog is barking.
that's okay. I
Can you hear him? Oh,
okay.
okay.
Like I said, when I like try to book any services, I always hope that they have like a automatic booking function. So I can just like put in my
Yeah.
time and not have to text or call them.
It's absolutely necessary. Yeah. And I do the only people I FaceTime is my mom and sister or like the friend that like
She
it's
like
like
always calls you.
just always like in my space. And like I love her. I love her for that because yeah, sometimes that's what it takes. And if I expect that, like I expect her to be like pushy and stuff. And
Yeah.
I mean,
I agree. I have
opposites
friends like that
attract.
too, where they know like 4 out of 5 times that they call me, I'm not gonna answer, but like the 5th time I will answer, and then they still don't care. They'll just talk to me as if I've not just screened 4 of their previous
Yeah,
calls, you know?
exactly. And if I find myself having to apologize, like, I'm like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I was always, like, apologizing for, like, being this way or,
Yeah.
like, not wanting to, talk on the phone or something, like, that drains my battery and that,
Yeah.
like, just kind of ensures that I probably won't interact as much, but,
So true.
yeah, I do like intentional friendships.
Yeah, and, like, the fact about, like, apologizing, like, it does a disservice to you yourself as well, because you really don't need to apologize as long as you're, like, communicating effectively in the ways that work for you as
Yeah,
to your boundaries, right? Then there's, like, really no need to
right.
be like, "Sorry, I don't like to do this," even though I've already made it very clear to you I don't like to do this.
Yeah, 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 exactly.
Can you elaborate on the energy shift that you notice in your home every Sunday or like almost like the Sunday scaries as you're preparing for the work week? And as somebody who you love being at home and you are re-energized by being at home, what are your tips to fully enjoy your space before you're working from home for the entire week?
Yeah, I think everybody experiences the Sunday scaries. Like, even if you love your job, there's definitely like an energy shift. It's like, oh, I got to go back to a more structured routine on Monday. But I do like I try to like romanticize my Sunday. So I do my errands. I try to prep for the next day. I know that's like probably frowned upon, but I do spend about an hour prepping for the work week. So that's when I'm like looking at my calendar. That's when I'm like seeing if there's not an agenda on some of the meetings, seeing if anything needs to be moved or if somebody declined a meeting and I like, it's still showing for me. I try to prep for the week on Sunday. That's just something that like works for me. And yeah, just romanticize like my Sunday. I used to have the Sunday scaries, I think more when I went into an office as opposed to now where I have a routine. I control my routine because essentially working from home, like, if I like 8 to 9, I don't have calls at 8 o'clock in the morning. That's something that is respected. I have more control over my time and that just really helps me with managing the energy shift or having the Sunday scaries is having that flexibility. And I know that's a privilege, but that's important to me.
Yeah, I agree. Like I have started to get into the habit, even just for half an hour on Sundays or whatever on the weekend, just to take a peek, just so that I set myself up on Monday morning in a good mindset, as well as
Yeah.
not taking, because I find once you hop into Monday, first off, everyone's hopping back in. So there's like a million messages or emails, right,
Yeah.
from the weekend. And then you take up like a chunk of the Monday morning just to get yourself back in the same routine, and it's pure chaos. So like I feel like if you do
Yeah.
it on Sunday, even for half an hour, an hour, then that's your undivided focused attention on what you need to get done for the week.
Exactly. Exactly.
Who or what inspires you in your career and content creation journey? And how do you stay motivated during challenging times?
I don't know about the content journey, like necessarily like who inspires me. I think content is, I mean,
Like you said, it was authentic
I
to
don't
you.
know. It can be a lot. I I can do like the endless scrolls. I'm not really sure who necessarily inspires me. I definitely like the art of content. I mean, and I'm like a creator, so I like the art. I like seeing like how people like edit and seeing like how they tell their story.
Right.
And it was really funny. I actually don't I can't remember the creator, but somebody like I was looking at this post actually it was today, and they were talking about this other creator who is a really great storyteller. And so I was like, "Oh, I'm going to go check out this creator cuz I like storytelling." And I'm looking at her page and that creator was following me and I wasn't following her, and I'm like, "Oh,
That's so cool.
that's really awesome."
Yeah, that's like a humble brag. That's, like, really impressive.
Yeah, I know. I just think that's really I just love the art of content creation, like and you can be inspired by anybody, like, you don't it doesn't even matter about the follower count.
Right.
It is an art, and anyone doing it, I'm inspired by the work that you do. In my career, my career role model is Bozoma St. John. I love her. She was the CMO at Netflix. She was also at Endeavor. She was at Uber. Anything I can read about her, I read it. She's not in the corporate space anymore, but her journey is inspiring. She's the best to ever do it, and I just love her. So I try to like not mimic her
Right.
career, but I'm like, okay, she went here, then she
Yeah.
went there. I'm always doing that. I'm always looking at somebody's LinkedIn, like like I said, I want to be a chief digital officer, I want to be or a CMO, and so I'm like, I need this experience, or I need to go like here, and I mean that's all. Like I've talked about like career journey or like the career compass, and those are the things that I keep top of mind.
Before we wrap up, can you share a significant turning point or a success story that has shaped your approach to work and life?
So I think this is one of the most significant turning points in my work life has definitely been I decided I was having a hard time at a job, and I told my husband, I was like, I need a new job. And he's like, okay, so you're miserable, you should go look for a new job. And so I did, and I came back. Like I had two job offers. I had a job offer in Michigan, so it was like Ben Harbor, Michigan. They call it like the suburb of Chicago.
Okay.
I also had another job offer in Fort Myers, Florida. And we chose Benton Harbor, Michigan. I probably would have chose Florida, honestly, because I'm from the South.
Yeah.
But my husband was like, "No, it's too hot," and so we chose Benton Harbor, Michigan, which is also like where like South Bend area. That's where Notre Dame is. My husband's been a Notre Dame fan his entire life. But in order for me to take that job, my husband, who was my fiance at the time, he needed to quit his job,
Wow.
and he was a teacher, and he taught for 10 years, and he did. He quit his job so that I could take the job in Benton Harbor, Michigan, and I consider that a turning point in my career because I think it's the first time where I felt like I had, like, a partnership, like someone wanted me to like truly be successful.
Mhm.
And that's my husband. And it does not matter like what I've done. Like I wanted to start a business. He's like, "Okay, I support you." I wanted to take this job. He's like, "Okay, I'll quit mine so we can move there." And he has like since he's not teaching anymore, but he has had a successful career. He has a successful career outside of teaching. It took some time, but he's been able to be successful.
Yeah.
And even content creation, he's like, I see it. Like, I see the I see the vision. You should do content creation. And I think that's so important. I am successful because I have a partner who supports me and backs me in anything that I want to do, and that makes it possible. So,
That was beautiful. I literally was gonna cry. Like I got teary-eyed. Like that's just a really beautiful story. And I'm like really, really happy that you found your person and the fact that he was able to build a career from making
mhm.
that sacrifice and not
Yeah,
resent you or be like hold you accountable for any of his failures or shortcomings while navigating his journey after quitting, right?
exactly. Yeah, it's been great. I'm so glad we took that chance, and that he took that chance on me, and yeah, we've been thriving since then.
Where can everyone find you? So on socials, anywhere that you want listeners to connect with you or continue following your journey.
Yeah, so I am on LinkedIn, of course, Roxy Couse. I am also on TikTok as well as Instagram, also Roxy Couse, no space. And those are probably the best places to find me. I'm also on YouTube. I need to do more with YouTube, but yeah, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I'm in all of those places.
I love it. Well, thank you very much, Roxy. I just feel so good after chatting with you. I feel really like inspired. I feel emotional. Like we had a really good
Oh,
discussion. You have so much insight and I feel really grateful that you're sharing this with everyone. Like that is really the whole point of this podcast is to share what you know with other people who don't have access to it or don't know what they don't know, right? So I just want to say
yeah.
thank you from the bottom of my heart. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, and thank you so much for having me. This has been really great, and I hope someone resonates with, any of the stories that I have to tell. And yeah, thank you.